everyone, this is Walter from Flux Zelcore dev team, and today I'm going to make a video guide showing how to create a desktop, a specific server to run at home as a Flux node. Hope you guys enjoy it. So to start, this one that I'm going to show you is a server that I have built to run as a Stratus machine after the node halvening, so it have all the specs needed. But I am going to give you some advices for you that you to help you find the better and cheap solutions to run a node at home. Okay, so some things I have bought new and some things I have bought used because there was no need to buy something new and extra price when I know there were pieces on the market cheaper used that will do the job perfectly. So what did I bought? RAM. So I have bought a kit of 64 gigabytes of RAM. This is I have bought it new because I didn't find used with good price, but where you live you can look at it. This is I would say overkill because this memory kit is 3600 megahertz, and I will not take the advantage of this memory kit. But there is another thing that I have thought about it is later on, if I want to sell it, I know this is being a gaming kit will have a bigger and higher reseller value, and I will sell them fastest if I want it. So 64 gigabytes of RAM. I have bought them new, but you can search for used ones. What else? Something that I pay a little bit is a 1 terabyte NVMe. This is a Samsung 9800 sorry 980 version. This is a really good NVMe, one of the best brands. And why did I bought this specific version? Special because for long-term run I want something good that will be I know that this will be used a lot on the Flux node, and I also want something that will not get damaged soon. So I want something really good, and again, one more time, I have bought it new, and I know this will this is one of the best solutions. So this will last a long time, and also if I want to sell it later, I will get I will sell it really fast. Also, there was a discount when I have bought this one, so this was a great price that I have got this NVMe. Something about the NVMe's, this one I believe have a disk write speed for around 3000 and read speed 3500, so it's a really good NVMe. There are better, faster solutions, but probably not as good considering the chips that Samsung is putting on their NVMe's. But of course you can save some really nice bucks buying a cheaper solution. Now the core, I will say the core, the CPU. What did I bought? I have bought a used AMD 7 Ryzen CPU. This specific one is the 7000. So it was the first generation of Ryzen CPU, and you will see after when I finish the presentation that the benchmarks of this is impressive. This will pass the benchmarks that are required to run a Stratus machine. This CPU is really nice. I have bought it used like for 100 euros or less, I don't even remember. So it was really cheap used. It came with the cooler already in it. So this version have cooler. Some Ryzen option doesn't have cooler. But what I want to tell you is on this specific part, you can go and try to catch some used deals. You can go for all the lineup of the Ryzen 7s, okay? This one is the 7000, but I also have bought other more recent. They of course also run really good, better than this one in consider the CPU requirements, the EPS, the events per second, but this one will do the job. So it's just a matter of you trying to get what is the cheapest Ryzen 7 that you can get or used, or you can go and try to find the deal on the new ones. All the Ryzen 7s will do the job, okay? So what I'm showing in here is like what are the minimum that you will have to look for, that you will know that will work for the Stratus after the node halvening. So something else that I also have bought used was the motherboard. The motherboard, I have bought this one, is a Gigabyte, the B4500 series. This is the second generation of motherboards of the AMD Ryzen's. This is a mini ITX version. What can I tell you about this kind of motherboards? You can buy a used one, doesn't need to be a new one. The things that you need to be careful is, for example, if you buy, for example, a CPU, a Ryzen 7 for the latest generations, the 5th generation, you need to be careful because old motherboards might not be compatible. Or if they are compatible, you will have first to install the latest BIOS version to make it work. So, for example, if I bought for this specific motherboard, if I have bought directly the latest generation of AMD Ryzen 7 and install on it, it wouldn't boot because on default the BIOS that comes installed on the motherboard doesn't run the latest AMD Ryzen. So you need to be careful with that. You will have to check what are the AMD Ryzen series that they support by default, okay? So on this specific series, something that I want to mention also is that the B4500 series, all of them will bottleneck your NVMe performance, because the NVMe to PCI Express that is available doesn't have all the gigabytes bandwidth that is this kind of NVMe requires. What does it mean? For example, you will see that despite I know, and I already have tested on other motherboard, that this specific disk have a disk write performance of around 3000. On this motherboard, the max that I will get is 1 gigabyte disk write speed. It will not get higher than that. So it's a bottleneck in there. But for the Stratus machine, what is required is 400 megabytes disk write speed. So it will do the job. So I have bought these used really cheap, around 25 euros. So really, it was really cheap used. Probably from exactly as the same as the CPU, probably from people or gamers that want to be on the latest gen, and in the reality these are still special. The CPU is still great performance, and this motherboard is more than enough for what we are looking for, okay? So what else did I have bought? And this is I have bought new, and I'm going to tell you this is for me is the art of any computer. This is the power supply. This power supply I've bought new, and I went for the brand that I have been using for years. And if you go search for reviews, you will find this is one of, if it's not the best, one of the best power supplies brands, Seasonic. Okay, uh, this one is only plus gold. I prefer the platinum, but when I have bought this, unfortunately, all the retailers here in Portugal didn't have any platinum version available. This is just 5500 watts version, and this is more than enough for what we are looking for. So I don't need anything else. But if you can grab a platinum version, this again, I don't mind spending little bit more euros on a power supply, because this is the art of your machine. This is what will give the resources, power watts resources for your machine. If this have any problem, or if this dies, there is a big risk that some of your components on your computer also will have problems, or will also die. I will say again, this brand, I've been using it for years, and it's impressive. I never had a die power supply of this brand. Okay, so this is just a suggestion. Doesn't mean that you need to buy from the same brand. You can go and buy something with the same kind of watch power, probably with half of the money I have spent on this one. But this is just something to for you to take in mind. Something else that I don't have in here, because I already have inserted on my computer, is the GPU. What GPU did I bought? I have bought a really old used GPU NVIDIA. I believe it has 1 or 2 gigabytes of RAM. Doesn't have it has passive cooling, but already have HDMI on it. And when I search a bit on the internet, it's only its power usage like 1 or 2 watts, and it's perfect for this specific case. So for the Flux node, you go and buy the cheapest GPU available on the market, on the used market, that have HDMI. It's in my case, it's a NVIDIA GeForce. I believe it's 2200 or something like that. It does the job and almost doesn't use any power. So this is what I have bought. What else will you need that you probably already have at home? You will need a flash USB drive. What else? A keyboard, okay, and mouse, and that's it. But this you probably already have at home. If you don't have a flash drive, you will have to buy one. So I already show what I have bought for the Stratus, but I also want to give some inputs for the other tiers. You can also run a Stratus. Doesn't need to be with a Ryzen. There are Intel CPUs, desk for selling for own desktops, that also have 8 CPU cores and 60 threads. That's what you need to look at. So I believe the 9700 series already have that, and from that series, for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, Intel also have CPUs that will be able to run a Stratus machine. But at the time when I was doing this or building this machine, it was much more expensive. So I went for the cheapest solution with these AMD Ryzens, and if you buy one, or if you don't have search online for it, you will see that the AMD Ryzen solutions, the CPUs are really, really good, and they will do a wonderful job as a Flux node. Okay, for the other tiers, if you go for the Nimbus or the Cumulus for Nimbus, also the Ryzen, instead of the 7, the 5 will do the job. You any Ryzen, you'll just need to check if you have the 4 cores, 8 threads. I believe most of them, the Ryzen 5 have 6 cores, 12 threads. They will do the job for you. And I would say that probably the Ryzen 3 will also do the job for the Cumulus nodes. I'm not sure, but almost for sure they all have 2 cores and 4 threads. But in this specific case for the Cumulus, I would say that even you will probably even find cheaper solutions used from Intel, a little bit older, that will for sure pass the benchmarks. Uh, I have only have the Stratus, so and it's normal. We don't know what will. I get some message, private message on Discord or in public channels asking, "Do you know if this CPU is going to pass the benchmark?" I don't know. It's like you will have to try it for yourself, because I don't. None of us know what will be the benchmark for each CPU. But special for Stratus, you will have to go for the Ryzen 7s or the latest Intel. For the Nimbus, Ryzen 5 will do the job for sure. Even the like this one that is from the first generation of Ryzen, I would say that even the first generation of Ryzen 5, if it has the 4 cores, 8 threads, will do the job almost for sure. And for the Cumulus, probably because we require lower EPS on each thread, probably not only the Ryzen, but in that department probably you will find cheaper Intel solutions that will do the job almost for sure. I would say that even those motherboards that have already included some Intel CPUs will almost for sure pass the benchmarks for the Cumulus node. And there are really cheap solutions for like nukes and for micro ITX computers that the motherboards already have embedded the CPU. The only thing that you need to be careful is checking if it has the 2 cores, 4 threads that are required. I would say if you go for the Intel chipset, I know there are some that are Intel Celeron. It's different. The Celeron, I am not sure if they are going to pass or not, but it's also, again, you can try to buy one new if you are going to buy a new one or used and test it for yourself. One is the most important thing that we are going to do. We are going to create a specific channel on our Discord where people can share the self-hosting machines that they are using, what are the CPUs, and share the benchmarks, so we can create a shared Excel file with all the CPUs that have passed the benchmarks for each tier. So it will be like a library, so everyone new that are starting can go there and check and knows, okay, I can go and buy this CPU or motherboard already with the CPU, because I know that will pass the benchmarks, have the minimum requirements that we are looking for. So again, to finalize, you need to be careful with what you are buying. This I already have installed myself the computer. Something that I haven't shown in here, it's also um, the tower that I have bought. I have bought a Cooler Master N300. I have bought them new. They already have included 2 fans inside. One of the things that you need to be careful with this motherboard is that it only have two pins for fans. One is for the CPU and other is for system. So I had to bought a epsilon splitter for fan that I am using on this motherboard to have the two fans that came with the desktop tower running. Okay, so this is something also that you have to take in mind. But I have bought them new, but this is also something else that you can go and try to find for used ones and try to buy a cheaper solution. Okay, so that's it from the hardware side. I am not going to show you mounting this because it's not the purpose in here. You can go and search online. There are hundreds, thousands of video guides showing how to install a computer at home. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always go to a IT or computer shop, bring them the hardware that you have bought, and for sure with the price they will build the machine for you. So that part I'm going to skip it. What I'm going to show you next is the installation of the Ubuntu on the machine that I have assembled. Okay, something else that I forgot to mention that you are also going to need is it's an Ethernet cable. You will need an Ethernet cable to connect your new desktop to your router, and also you will need a monitor so you can make the installation process. So what I'm going to show you in here is, so you will have to download the latest Ubuntu server. I go to this website, Ubuntu download server, and as you can see, it's Ubuntu downloads, get Ubuntu server, and you select this option, manual server installation. When you press it, you have in here download Ubuntu server 2004.3 LTS. LTS is the long-term support. That is what we are looking for. There is probably in April there will be launch a new Ubuntu server, but for now we are going for these options. So we press it and the download will start. Okay, it's already downloading the image. And what else you will need? I already have installed, but I will show you. It's the Rufus. If you go to Rufus, create bootable US drive easy way. You go here and where is the download? Sorry, this is in Portuguese. For you, will show you on your language. And in here you have to download the latest version. There is a portable version or install version. You decide what is the one that you are going to use. Okay, I already have installed on the computer, so I'm going just to open it, the latest version. Okay, there it is. So what you will need to do is insert your USB on your, in this case is my laptop, but you can do it on your desktop. Okay, and it's already showing this device have what has in it. It's already Ubuntu server. It's already what I have used, but I will still show you what you will need to do. So the download is almost finished. Let's wait just a little bit longer. Okay, it's finished. What you need to do in here, it's really simple. You just need to press this select and go to the folder where the image was downloaded. So you select the image, it's here, in here, you press open it, and automatically everything will be filled with the options that you will need. The only change that I do from the default is instead of selecting large fat 32, I usually prefer to format an NTFS format. You press start and there it goes. It takes some minutes. You wait for it to finish, and when it's finished, you just remove securely your flash, your USB drive from the computer. I'm not going to do it because it's already installed in there, okay? So let's move on for the installation of the Ubuntu on the new desktop. Okay, turning on my desktop. First thing that I'm going to show you is going to the BIOS. Is usually what I do. As you can see, press Del to go to the BIOS. That's what I'm pressing. So what do I want to show you guys in here? First, advanced frequency settings. When you load up, this will be disabled, and basically you can do two things. I believe that on the first time that you load up, on default, the memory, it will start as 2600 megahertz. But on this desktop, as I have show you, I have bought memory with 36 megahertz. So one of the things that I'm going to do is enable this XMP profile. This is more something for the Intel, but also works on AMD Ryzen. The only things that you need to be careful is, as you can see, I have set the profile. This memory only have one profile, DDR4, 36 megahertz and other things. And the multiplier would be 36. But instead, I have set in here that multiplier will be 32. Why? Because the sweet spot on the AMD Ryzen's is 3200 megahertz. Only the latest generation, the Ryzen 5, not Ryzen 5, Ryzen 7 from the Series 5, only with that generation you will get benefits of using a higher memory frequency. All the others, for example, on this one I'm using the AMD Ryzen 7 1700. There was an issue, and on the first series, the BIOS for all the manufacturers, they wouldn't even boot at 3200 megahertz, but they have done so many updates meanwhile, and now on this processor, the best I can get from the memory is this multiplier, this 32 megahertz. And also on second and third generation, this is what is recommended to use as the sweet spot, where you are going to get the best performance from your memory combined with your CPU. So this is what I have done. I have set the profile, but instead of using multiplier 36, that what is this memory, I am setting to use 3200 megahertz. So this is one of the changes that I do always on the BIOS before I start doing stuff. And also other thing is the flash. One of the first things that I do, even before setting that part that I have been showing you, is updating the BIOS. For me, this is very important. Doesn't mean that you need to do, but updating BIOS to the latest version from the manufacturer is really important, because since the start of the AMD Ryzen, the AMD have been launching several updates that makes the Ryzen more stable, getting better performance. So it's really important to have an updated BIOS. Where can you get it? It's really simple. You go to the motherboard manufacturer. In this case it's Gigabyte. You check on the Gigabyte site, model name. There is a support page. It's equal for all motherboard manufacturers. You go to the model, there is a support, page, on the support page, you will find the BIOS. You download the latest BIOS. 99% of times it comes on a zip file. You extract that zip file for a USB flash drive, you connect it to your computer, and on the BIOS you will be able to update the BIOS from the USB drive. Okay, so after you have updated the BIOS, you know that you have the latest version, the most stable version, and then you go and do that change that I have shown you regarding the memory. I have set 32, but be careful. If you buy a cheaper memory that only runs at, for example, 300 megahertz, you need to change the multiplier to only run at that multiplier. Okay, so this is one of the change I do, and also the other change I do is on the smart fan. All motherboards nowadays have a page where you can set up how do you want the fans to work. So this gigabyte is very simple. On the Asus manufacturer, usually they have a automatic button. When you press it, it will check all the fans that you have inserted on your system, and it will run them from 100% lowering until they shut down, to see what are the performance of your fans, and they automatically adjust what for the motherboard thinks is the best setup. In this case, what have I done? I am now monitoring the CPU fan, because I like silent. I choose the silent in here. And also you can change, in this case there is only one fan adapter for the system fan. I told you I have bought a Epsilon splitter, so I can connect to two fans from my tower, my desktop tower from Cooler Master. And what I have done in here is change, I believe from default what I had in here was like a chipset or something else. So I want the fan to be used by the CPU temperature, and I have set manually what I want. You can go there and also choose silence, normal, whatever you want. I set up this manually. Why? Because I want silence, and I just want the fans to start working when the CPU reach some temperature. So basically, until this temperature is reached, the fans are basically shut down, and the desktop is really close to the where we are recording this video, and you can't listen everything. It's almost 100% silent. So this is one of the changes I do. You don't need to do these changes. I would say that the frequency settings, the part of the changing the multiplier for the memory to get the best performance, it's important for you to do. Also, going to tell you, if you have bought a CPU that have integrated GPU, there are several for AMD Ryzen, special for those tiny little box. It's those. There is something else that you also need to do on the BIOS. It's basically, there will be a place where it's asking how much memory do you want to be assigned for the GPU that is inside the CPU. And if you run in auto, for example, on a 62 gigabytes, if it detects 62 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of RAM, it will probably use 3 to 4 gigabytes assigned to the GPU. And that will cause the Flux bench to fail, because the system will only have 61 or 60 gigabytes of RAM. So you will have to change on the BIOS to set them manually what are the memory that you want to assign to GPU. And what I'm going to tell you is assign the minimum value possible, set the minimum value possible. That will make the benchmark pass, and because this will not be used as a gaming or desktop, normal, this is just a server, setting the minimum will not make any difference on the performance for what you are looking for. So that is also something that I would like to tell you, that you need to be careful. So something else that you can also do is, let me check where it is. Okay, it's in this section of BIOS. The fast boot is now disabled, but if you want to have a fast boot option that basically goes directly to the operating system that you have installed, you can enable this. I use it disable on the servers. I don't see any benefit having enabled, but for example, on my desktop computer, I have this enabled, and there is a big difference on the time for the Windows to load up. Okay, so that's it from this. You do the changes, you save them, and after I will tell you how do you start up from your USB flash USB drive to start installing Ubuntu. So stay tuned. Okay, so it's saving, and now what I'm going to do, you will see on the bottom how to access the boot menu, to select from where do you want to start. You press, in this case is F12. I'm pressing F12 and it show me where do you want to boot. So I will select to boot from UFI SanDisk, that is the manufacturer of the USB flash drive, the one that says UFI SanDisk partition one. Going to select this one, press enter, and it will ask me install Ubuntu server. I press enter and that's it. It will start installing Ubuntu. So it's checking integrity of the USB flash drive. I will pause and resume when it's finished. Okay, resuming. Okay, first thing, really important, you need to choose the English language, okay? Because the Ubuntu, sorry, not the Ubuntu, Flux benchmark requires that decimal separator to be the dot. So use English. Next thing is saying, okay, there is a new installer update available, not the one that it was available from the Ubuntu that was, that image doesn't have the latest installer available. So you have options. You can continue without updating or update to the new installer. You can use the arrows on your keyboard to move, and enter or space, I believe space also works, to choose. So I will update to the new installer. You need to have the server that you can see is right here on the left. You need to have it connected to the internet, to your, with Ethernet cable connected to your router, okay? So let's choose the option continue update to the new installer. Okay, as you probably, I'm sorry because I'm using mobile. The focus is going crazy sometime, but I hope that you can still see what are the options that I'm selecting. So now it's asking me what is the layout of my keyboard. In this case, I'm going to select the one that I'm using, that it's Portuguese. It automatically changed the version. As you can see, now I'm going press down and choose done. Now it's collecting a IP for this server or for this desktop from the DHCP from the router. I already have an IP. I will press done to continue. Asking me if there is a proxy. I will press done. Next, I don't have any proxy. What is the Ubuntu mirror to download all the updates? Because I'm in Portugal, it's selecting automatically the Portuguese version, but you don't have to change anything in here. It's just pressing done. And now it's the part that you will have to do changes. It's automatically selected with an X to use the entire disk. And yes, that's what we want to use, but it's also selected to set up this disk as an LVM group, and we don't want that. So you have to select that part with the keyboard and press space. It will remove it. As you can see, it's no longer in there, and then you press done to continue. Now it's showing what will be the disk partitions after the install. Yes, done, continue. It's telling me, okay, everything will be formatted. If you have any information on the disk, it's going to be lost. You choose continue to continue. Now, the part that you can choose whatever you want, basically. It's asking, sorry, the focus went out again. Let me, okay. What's your name? I'm going to put my name. What's your server name is? What do you want this server to be recognized on your network? On VPS is also known as what's the host name? I will call it Flux node. And what's the username that you want to use as the user to be created to use the Ubuntu. Same way that when you are creating or installing, for example, a Windows for the first time, it will ask you what is the username for the user that will be created to use the operating system. So my recommendation in here is that you use a username that you are familiar with, that you use on your Windows machine, whatever, and the password. I will put Flux node, but I will strongly suggest you to choose something else, because we want to be something. This will be from SSH available to log in from outside. So it's important that you pick a username that it's not Flux node or not Flux related. Something that you know, that you use, that you are aware. And also the password. Password, something that is complex, but that you are familiar with, that you use every day or almost every day and you won't forget. Because this username and password, it will be the one that you will use for now on. It will be the username from your system. It's different from the VPS. When you rent a VPS, you get a root user, and then you need to create a own user to install the Flux node. In this case, you are already selecting what it's going to be your username, where the Flux node it's going to be installed. Okay, so I'm going to type the password I want. Okay, and I'm going to press done. Next is asking if I want to install, let me install the SSH server. And yes, you want, so you press space So it's selected. This will make your desktop available for you to SSH from another desktop or your laptop, whatever, and you don't need to have the server connected to a monitor to do anything. You do all after from your laptop or your desktop. So don't forget, you need to put an X on install open SSH server and you press done. Now it's asking if you what do you want to use this Ubuntu server for. There are several different install process that will install different things on your server. I don't choose anything in here. Yeah, I just press done. Okay, and it's now installing. So let's wait a bit and I will resume when it's finished. Okay, the installation is complete as you can see, and you have the option to reboot now. Okay, it's saying that basically is not being able to start because the USB flash drive is still attached to the computer. So I'm going to remove it and press enter. Okay, and I believe it's already load up. This is the server, so you only get terminal information. So if I press enter, it says what is the computer name that I gave, and it's asking me what is the login. I specified that user was Flux node. So Flux node, my password, and as you can see, I'm in. So before we move next, one of the things that most important in here is that you can grab your IP, your local IP address. So from now on, I can shut down the monitor and continue basically using SSH and connect to this server and do anything from my laptop instead of needing to have this server connected to a monitor. There is still one thing that I'm going to show in here that for me it's one of the things that needs to be done. Is the first thing I do every time you get Ubuntu server running and it's running sudo apt get update. It's asking for the sudo password. It's basically the password that you set for the user. Okay. Finish, and after sudo apt get upgrade ipsum. I written badly. I'll instead of sudo. Okay, now it's basically updating everything. After this finish, I also recommend to reboot the machine. So after updating everything from the Ubuntu, it shouldn't take a while. Basically because it's NVMe disk and a great CPU. So it's really also the internet connection that I have is also good. But so in your house, it will can take a while, only depending on the internet connection that you have. But basically, when you install the Ubuntu, it's the first thing that I recommend is updating the system. Okay, it already have finished, so I'm going to reboot. Sudo reboot. And I'm going to show you the latest thing uh, that you need to know before you start installing a Flux node. And for the Flux node, I'm not going to show in here because there are already dedicated video guides from Goose and Medium guides that you can look at on our official website that shows you what needs to be done when you connect. This case is a server, but you can see it as the same way that you connect to a VPS uh, when following the video guide. So Flux node was the user I have created. I'm going to use it here. Okay, now it says that there is no update available, so it's completely updated. One of the things that I'm going to do is, basically show you how do you move to root so you can start up the install process of the Flux node. You basically have to do sudo hyphen. I believe it's this way. Let's confirm. So what's the password? It's the same as the user. No, it's not this command. Let me try to remember. Sudo root. Let me see if this one. No, it's not this one. Let's give me just a moment. Okay, I know. It's sudo su space hyphen. Okay, and as you can see, I already now as the root user. So from this part, when you type this command, it will probably ask you what is your user password, because your user have root privilege. So you type the password if it asks you, and it will move to root. So from this part, now you can start the installation script of the Flux node that needs to be run the first step as root. And when you install the first part, at the installation of the Docker installer, it will ask you what is the user that you want to create to install the Flux node that will be used for the second step. The username that you need to type in there, it's exactly the same username that you have created for your system. So in this case, I would type in there Flux node, and that's it. It will use the user that you have created to install the Ubuntu to be the one that is running the Flux node. Okay, and that's it from my part. I hope you have enjoyed it, and don't forget to check. For me, the most important part in here is checking your IP address, your local IP address, so you can go to your desktop or laptop and use a SSH client to connect to the server, basically, instead of me typing on the keyboard connected to the server and having this monitor connected to the server. It's not needed. This is a server. So you can SSH and do everything you need from another computer. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope to see several Flux nodes running from home. Last part that I didn't mention in here that it's also really, really important, and I was almost forgetting, but I'm going to show you, is, let me go to my laptop. Okay, I am now on my laptop, and there was one last thing that I want to show you. First of all, is showing me SSH to this server that I have created. So the remote host is the IP. I'm using mobile Xterm. You can use PuTTY or anything else. So the IP, my local IP address was this one. Bookmark settings, Flux server. Okay. Yes, and ask me what is the username that you want to log in. It's Fluxnode, the user that I have created. What is the password? Yeah, I can save it. And as you can see, I am now connected to the server using my laptop SSH to the server. So you don't need to do anything else connected directly to the server. So what did I also want to show you? That is, if you go to the Raspberry Medium guide, is to running a Flux node at home currently, you need to open a set of ports for your local IP where the Flux node is running. So this IP. So I'm going to show you. This is the Flux node medium guide for the Raspberry Pi 4B. If you scroll down, oh, it was too much. Check. Configure your router to work with Flux. So there are a bunch of ports or range of ports that needs to be opened for the Flux node to work. So you can do two ways. So I know what is the IP of my router, so I can set that up. I'm putting in English. So on this specific router, it's on security, and you have two options. You can set up all the ports using port forwarding and creating rules for all the ports that are asked in here on Raspberry Pi Medium Guide, or you can do easier way, that is the one that I use, that is basically go to the DMZ zone and change the IP for the IP, your local IP, where you are going to install the Flux node. Basically, what this DMZ does is not using the router firewall for this local IP. It will be completely open to the network, to the internet. But if you are worried about hacking and other kinds of things, you are just opening the connection to this server, and the Flux OS installs a software firewall, the UFO, and only open the ports that are really used by the Flux OS when they are needed. So you don't need to worry about if you are going to use this way of enabling to be your router to use the Flux node. I prefer, to tell you the truth, I usually set just the DMZ and that's it. But if you want to go the other other way, like it's explaining on the medium guide, on the Raspberry medium guide, you can find on our Flux official medium. The other way is basically port forwarding, creating rules for all the ports and range that are specified in here. For running at home, you need to do this. If you don't do this, it will not Flux node, it will not work properly. Okay, so this was the final thing that I want to show you guys. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope to see you soon on our Discord channel, telling that you have used the guide and you have set up a node at home, a new node at home. Remember, decentralization is a key part from our project, and we really ambish that you guys start building your servers and running your servers at home. Thank you very much for your time. I hope to see you guys soon. Bye bye. Cheers.